Hello and welcome to the Wirtz Winemaker Showcase. I'm Sam Bremer, Certified Sommelier and Director of Training and Development for Wirtz Beverage of Minnesota. And today we're joined by Michael Scholz, the winemaker, for the fabulous St. Supery Estate Vineyard and Winery in Napa Valley, California. Welcome and thank you for joining us, Michael.
Oh, thank you, Sam. It's great to be here, and thanks for having us. It's terrific, really good.
Wonderful. Can you tell us a bit about your background and how did you come all the way from Barossa Valley in Australia to the Napa Valley in California, and you have kind of a rich winemaking history in your family, or vineyard management?
Yeah, absolutely. I was very fortunate in the fact that I grew up on an old Barossa Valley estate in my family property, and so I sort of grew up in viticulture amongst the vineyards and what have you. And if I wanted to go and earn some pocket money, that's where my father sent me, was out in the field. And later on went off to school to study winemaking. Then I went off into the industry and started making wine for a couple of other brands and so forth. And I had a desire to travel around the world and look at different wine districts. So I arranged a couple of opportunities to work in places. And so obviously one of them was California. And then also had the opportunity to travel through France and check out some of the wine districts there, and then again to work down in South Africa. So I did that, and when I finished up in Africa, I was due to head to Australia, but was invited back to California.
Now, it's estate vineyards. You own and control all of the growing, from the start to finish there. But you actually have kind of two separate properties: the Dollarhide Ranch and the Rutherford Ranch. What's kind of the different factors there? What goes into those two different properties as far as what are you getting out of there, and what really kind of separates the two properties there?
Well, there's a significant amount of difference. Obviously, if you go to two different sites, you get two different soil profiles. The other thing that's dramatically different is at Rutherford we have an elevation that's probably maybe only 50 feet above sea level, because we're down towards the lower part on the floor of the valley. At Dollarhide we have elevations of up to 600 or 700 feet, depending where you are in the property. That's a dramatic difference from the effects of climatic patterns and what happens at high elevation versus low elevation. The other thing that makes it even more unique is the fact that we get all the unique coastal influence that Napa Valley gets generally, and that is all the fog that comes in and the cold night air that comes in from San Pablo Bay that rolls up the valley from the south end to the north. And we all get a piece of that. And the further north you go, the less you get of the fog, but you still get the chilling influence. And we get it at the Dollarhide Ranch too, but not nearly as much as Rutherford. So Rutherford will get fogged in during the summer in the mornings. At Rutherford we have some nice silty, sandy alluvial soils, great for growing grapes. They're excellent. They're deeper, and therefore they produce a different vine or a different grape. We go to Dollarhide and we have a lot more, while we have some alluvial soils and such, we have a lot more hillside, and those hillside soils are very shallow. And so when you have a shallow soil, it leads to smaller vines. Smaller vines have a little more exposure, deeper colour, deeper tannin, deeper structure, smaller berries. So that when you go into vinification in the fermenter, you've got a tremendous juice to skin ratio, so we get excellent colour, excellent structure. So they're unique for different things. Rutherford, we can get those same sort of things, but we get a different, more graceful and charming fruit profile and approach.
Tell us a bit about what St. Supery does for their green practices and what kind of differentiates Napa Green Certified from the rest.
So to be certified, we actually have to meet certain parameters, of course, many of which we were doing already, and we just encourage them further. But that could be like at Dollarhide, the property there is a 1,500 acre property, and we have 470 acres under vine. So we maintain gateways and passageways for wildlife travel and so forth. We encourage bird life, wildlife approaches that way. We encourage as much a natural approach as we can, and therefore we try to avoid bringing anything synthetic on the property. So everything is natural from that perspective. We encourage cover crops or grasses and so forth to balance vines and balance moisture content in the soil and ensure that we have a good growing approach through the season. So a lot of those sort of facets go into sustainability, but certainly to avoid synthetics.
Now, finally onto the wines, as we have the winemaker here. St. Supery, you're really kind of working within, I think, three different, should we call it tiers of wine, where you have your estate wines, then we have the Bordeaux varietals, the Elu and the Wirtz, and then you kind of have more of the specific vineyard blocks. Can you kind of talk about the different philosophies in the three wines and how those came to be and how they're kind of separated out and what people should be looking for out of them?
Sure. You're absolutely, Sam, you're absolutely right. We have, I guess, sort of three tiers in a sense. And what we have that consumers have the greatest opportunity to find out in the wine world is our Napa Valley line, which is the estate line you mentioned. And that's, the Sauvignon Blanc and the Cabernet Sauvignon that we have here. And those wines, we try and produce wines there that have great flavour, great opulence, great intensity, and great youth in the way of Sauvignon Blanc, and great density and structure and texture in the way of Cabernet. When we go to the vineyard designate tier, what we're doing there is we're actually taking the fruit from that wine from one of the locations. So we have a Rutherford series and we have a Dollarhide series. So in Rutherford we produce a Merlot and we produce a Cabernet Sauvignon. At Dollarhide we actually produce our Cabernet Sauvignon also. Those two Cabernets are different from each other because they're different sites, but they're both vineyard designated. So that's what we're doing, and so we have a number of those in that tier. We are essentially a Bordeaux house. We, of course, produce a couple of exceptions because we have a little Chardonnay we produce and we have a little Moscato. But other than that, everything's pretty much Bordeaux. So what we're doing with the Wirtz, for example, is we have produced a Bordeaux White, and it's a Semillon Sauvignon Blanc blend. Now, that's maybe a slight departure from a lot of Bordeaux Whites because most of them are probably Sauvignon Blanc dominant. But we find we're producing some excellent Semillon, and it gives great texture and a great platform to your palate profile of that wine. And then when you blend that with Sauvignon Blanc, which Sauvignon Blanc is very voluminous in flavour, you bring this terrific profile of the wine, really exciting, really vibrant. And with that wine, we actually incorporate some oak fruit fermentation, which brings in a little bit of that not really sort of lovely, seductive, charry sort of oak into the blend. It's really a cool blend to make, and so it works exceptionally well. So that's how that comes together for the Bordeaux.
That's what we have in the glass here.
It is. It's the Elu. So 2007 Elu.
Yeah, beautiful, bold wine, but with that blending, I think it kind of helps round it out a little bit. It makes just a perfect pairing to, obviously steakhouse type of fare, but I think also some more lighter fare as well, because even though it's got that bold nature of the Cabernet, you soften it out with that Merlot, which makes it a really very food-friendly style Bordeaux Cabernet.
It is, and it's a good comment, Sam, and the fact that Merlot tends to be a little more graceful in its approach. Cabernet's more robust, more bold, and has a big start and has a big finish. Merlot tends to be very centered and very plump. So they encourage each other through the profile of the wine.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
No
Michael,
problem.
It's been a real pleasure. And please, when you're out in the marketplace, look for these wonderful St. Supery wines, family-owned, Napa Green certified, all estate vineyards, and really just elegant, beautiful, food-friendly wines that are perfect for any occasion. So thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time on the Wirtz Winemaker Showcase.